Hello, everyone. Today's talk will be called an awareness to vehicles. And so the idea of a vehicle has become very interesting for me. Because if we take, for example, a car, an automobile, we simply see that the driver goes into a very limited state where there's only limited movement, but capable limited movement. In other words, you can go directly very fast, but for example, you don't have the dynamics of the individuality of the human being. And so let's say you go into the car, and as you're in this vehicle, you get a vision of the forward. It's as if you have an awareness beyond the vehicle, and that is why you are maintaining that body so well and this body so well. So what I'm trying to say is that I noticed that the fact that there's a vehicle, it could suggest something for experience as well, as if this body, this moment of existence we are, it's as if an awareness to all these changes, right? And so we think we have fixed bodies, but when we recognize it, oh my God, we thought the physicality is going to change. No, our consciousness is the expansion of our world. So if we were stuck in an island, we would not, in a sense, completely let our mind decay. So what that means is consciously you may sit down and in pure stillness, not visualize worlds, but allow and see simply how your thought streams are leading. For example, many people think they only have one good thought. No. That's how we communicate, as if we have one thought. We are a multidimensional experience of all thought. And we are experiencing it in many ways. That's why your thoughts can have relationship with one another. An example I've right off the bat that I can tell you, it's for example that moment where you can visualize your memory. And when I say visualize, it's as if you're in your past. You can visualize yourself, for example, a long time ago in your grandmother's backyard or something as a kid playing. So as I remember myself being there, it's as if from this present moment I have allowed myself to re-experience a sense of space and time conception that was very real to me that I've had. So what that means is that there are many moments where this continuity, this sense of individual self is constantly getting simultaneous understanding. You get it before sleep. Meditation is more of a conscious approach to it. When you're, let's say, surfing or something and you're just jumping up, on the wave or whatever, whatever you're doing, let's say that intensity of experience is a multidimensional one. It's as if you as a human being are recognizing you're not just a drop, but you're the whole ocean. And that is why surfing the wave was powerful, because the human experience was blending in with nature's experience. And that is always a great experience. Trust me, if you were to climb a tree very slowly and every moment observe its design and what your vision would be from each branch, your mind will be blown. It's as if nature was fascinating, but just people forgot to see it. That's it. We forgot to see it. We just went into boxes. All my ancestors, liked boxes more than they liked outside. So, so now that I'm in the city, for example, I was born in the city. So the understanding of man must be an awareness to the many states of being where how would I say it? Your body is not just in one context being understood. So now let's go back to the idea of the vehicle. You see, there are many vehicles in reality, but one that you need to be aware of is ideology. Because you are going and calling yourself with a name. So it's very important that you, as a life form, suddenly realizing that it is from sound and how all the other people around you are acknowledging sound, that there are certain realities about you that's real, It's that moment, for example, where that young rapper realizes that he needs to, he has talent and he can go right on the top, but it's as if no one's acknowledging it because he's not seen, because we're only acknowledging a few. We have created elites in our creativity, and that is the most uncreative thing we can do as human beings. To have certain people and their movements dictating. It's as if all our children are so running towards these musicians, which are like the next more real idols after their parents, and it's as if we are seeing that attention is going to other before it's going to self. If the human being is aware, he will always know where he is. He will always know exactly what his priorities are, and he will be aligned. What that means is, when I sat down to see how my adjustment system would be, if you think about it, if you're one of those people who wants to just constantly plan and just have this, you want to your whole life have a sense of planning, where from this planning then you have a sense of stress if every time you're not prepared to. If you're one of those people who wants to have that form of mentality in leading your life, you will see that when I sat down, when Mr. Within looked at it, there is a way of living where you're juggling things, and you're so aware of this juggling that it's making your arms tired. And there's a way of living where the things, before you want to juggle them, are already juggling. These are things that are real to you, that innately are your pure interests. And what I mean by that is, guys, there was a sense of transition in how I was functioning, and the fact that I realized if I'm constantly juggling, I won't be comfortable on the ride. It's as if I've got a bad seat, right? So what I would do is that I learned that I need to learn to trust my environment, that my path in this life is not just my steps. In other words, the energy that is moving me in life is not just me, it is everything. And so this existential understanding shifted shifted a sense of functionality in my life. And it all leads to how, when you are in a vehicle, the reason the vehicle is moving, the reason we are inspired to life, because we know we exist as our collective being. We know it. It's just that consciously we don't recognize, and we create stories about it. But the minute you do, all the stories fade, and it's like a direct connection with life. It's something that I cannot communicate, and it's not something that is helpful to communicate about someone's internal experiences, unless there is a very, as if everyone, both hearing and communicating, are both self-aware. In self-awareness, it's as if you suddenly see a human being that is not reacting to thought, to any thought. When you see that, it is a fascinating sign, because that brings dimensions of experience as extended. It's like that person who went into a fight and came back afterwards and just had a totally different understanding, had a totally new dimension of experience, and just was silent when he usually talked, for example. You see? It's very crucial to know what you are driving and what is being driven. Because when you look at what the purpose of life is, in every moment you are purposeful to infinite things. So the purpose of life, after you see the externality is temporal, is actually the cultivation from your internal understanding to your externality. So what that means is that you as a being are, imagine, let's say, suddenly presented in a neutral zone, in a neutral platform. From this neutral platform, you may choose to embrace with the ideology of man, with the shape of man, and in a sense your self-awareness will become individualized in the sense that you will have an ego. However, you can also choose to recognize that another sense of being that can approach life is to be aware of all ideology, but not touching it. It's as if you're aware of the vehicle, but not in it. So when you're aware of the vehicle but not in it, it doesn't mean you don't have a car. It doesn't mean you don't have a body. It just means that your awareness as a conscious moment is shifting into a new sense of expressive intelligence. I've talked about the concept of geometry acting as vehicles, but only vehicles to a self-awareness beyond shape. So geometry is very crucial, guys, to be also utilized as a vehicle, but not in a one-dimensional sense. What that means is when you look at a triangle, for example, or a circle or a square, these shapes on a piece of paper, you can just look at that and give it dimension because you are a being of greater dimension. Do you see? Because you're a being of greater dimension, you always have an ability to, for example, visualize a 2D thing in 3D. This is simply the nature of your being and also the nature of how the planes of existence are, in a sense, weaved. What will happen is that as one lets go of an idea and becomes a sense of collective awareness, the human being, as if he's born and suddenly he is not choosing to be molded to be identified. It's a very untouched state, and I think the only the only way I kept it on my subtler planes was, I think, because I was very playful and ridiculous in my thoughts. And so that playfulness did not erase what I kind of brought in on my subtler planes here. When I say subtler planes, guys, by the way, I'm acknowledging a human being who has remembered itself as a being, as an advanced communicator. And this concept is a new concept that Mr. Within has brought, because an advanced communicator is a being that is aware of just the first solid dimension was being so directly, so consciously. It's as if you turn off all the TV, the iPhones, everything, you go in nature and you immediately become aware of life. And let's say as you have become aware of life, then you observe the self. And again, just as I said, you are a multidimensional being, because you have considered yourself to be a thought, because you have been considered to be a name, you automatically are a being who will give names dimension. And that is why when I say words, it's as if human beings are using a lower dimensional technology to have much more of an interesting experience in their present dimensional experience, you know, or let's say the present dimensional technology. And pretty much what I mean by that is that we are not individuals, actually. If I was to very playfully communicate what mankind and all beings are, it would be, imagine a spiral that is spiraling into itself. You know, it's both spiraling out and it's spiraling in infinitely. Now imagine the spiral being the line of the spiral being made with the golden ratio. Imagine this being the golden ratio, and imagine this flow, just this intense flow of energetics. Visualize this with light, visualize it with whatever's not comfortable with you. And for me, imagine this spiral, and we are just simply one point on the spiral, in this infinite spiral that's always moving and vibrating, let's say. If you choose to engage in the imagery and the hierarchical way that many people do it, through vibrations, saying things are different vibrations. But anyways, the whole thing is that we are as if one dot in this vastness. So it's as if I thought I was only one individual, one sense of self. No. Individuality is an existential allowance for a certain range of perception. After a certain range of perception, the nature of the dimension is collective. So you immediately go into that collective sense of being. Guys, it's very important that you realize it's time for you to have advanced communication with yourself, advanced self-awareness, advanced self-observance. And you know, I say advanced because at first you need to put the intentions. So all those people, for example, let's say all those Zen masters, Buddhist teachers, gurus, yogis or whatever, who are teaching to the West, they say it brings you happiness, but no, the actuality of what Eastern philosophy, let's say, at its roots understood in a very traditional sense back in the day, in other words, what the seers of thought landed on this plane, it was, there are greater technologies here, and there are many in ancient India. So in India, pretty much. It's very important for the East to recognize that it's an intention as a being. Spirituality is not just some playful fantasy for your image. You want to go explore the self. You want to go explore the nature of existence. In other words, Morpheus hasn't showed up. Go and look at how the plane of existence is made. Go and see if you find any white rabbits in the cubicles. It's very important for you to see that consciousness is giving an aspect of its experience an individuality that individuality can never leave as an individual. So your plane of existence is your body, and when I say your body, it's simply how this reality is temporal. But on a subtler way of your own way of acknowledging. So what that means is as the pilot of consciousness, you're first in this external reality. It's as if, let's say, we want to say you're just a self-aware being. We don't want to say you're spiritual, you have soul or anything. You're just a self-aware being, and everything is objective at first. Let's say you're suddenly in a forest. When you're in a forest, it doesn't matter if you're a scientist, if you're not a scientist, whoever you are, if you're someone who is a spiritualist, regardless of who you are, if you are someone in a forest and there's no one there, your questions are authentically for yourself. So you will no longer question that guy, oh really, do you believe in God? No, that's an inferior mind. You will question yourself why you do not believe God. Do you see that? You don't throw it at others, you throw it at yourself, and you break your molds and you expand your mind. And you expand your mind by knowing how expansive it is. And so, guys, it is very important to have an understanding of vehicles, because vehicles become that external reality. So if I was in that forest, I would immediately become aware of the imagery that I'm seeing. So in other words, I'm no longer having my focus only in, let's say, the museum to the artwork. I'm looking at the artwork of my moment. I'm looking at my perception. I'm aware of my senses. Immediately as I become aware, I notice that there needs to be decisions made and values assigned to what's going on. But these values, I don't do them. I just trust life, and they are naturally there. The reason I trust life, because I am receiving it from life first, not from myself. And what that means is, when you receive from life, that means for a second you have gotten that shaman's wisdom, where when that shaman was a child, his father told him, the plants will tell you what to do. Listen to the plants, And so that kid grew in receiving from his environment, listening to them, listening to life, that he suddenly reached and became a very cool shaman. As shown in media. So pretty much the idea is that you are a being in which a human experience is your immediate reality. But as you become aware of this immediate reality, you are creating a conscious reference point to then create a simultaneous sense of simultaneous reality spectrum, if I could say that. Imagine suddenly becoming more aware of the movements of that golden ratio spiral, which is constantly going in and out of itself. The reason that image is satisfactory is because you cannot communicate it without paradox. You need paradox. Paradox is the healthiest gift for mankind. A paradox means you've been thinking you're guilty your whole time, but suddenly you see you could also be thinking that you're not. It's that moment where reality stops because your observance allows it. The vehicles will become, for the human being at least, for the pilot of consciousness, it will become in a way where you have to create at first your own imagery, and then by utilizing your imagery for a while, your own imagery would fade and you would become a natural receiver. You would become, it's a similar approach as that Japanese craftsman who was just so much doing his art form, his art form, and that he just stopped thinking at some point, and his hands were doing the thing constantly, you know. It's as if practice gives us the skill because it tunes us to the ability where our reality has that vision, you know. On your subtler planes, many people are interested in the concept of contact, but before the human being can get a multidimensional understanding, contact will be it wouldn't be useful, do you know? I mean, it's as if we were eyes in the sky, we'd be like, okay, we can come down here, you know, we can come down to these beings, but if they do not understand that they are existentially similar to us, if they do not understand that they're all children of existence just like us, then they will constantly keep us in a game. A lot of beings don't come down because why would they be in a game? Why would they be in a game? We want efficient communication. Advanced communication is the allowance to see that that efficiency is naturally present. When nature is walking, how dare we say that we are machines, we're mechanical objects? Look at this cosmos. Look at what is keeping it here. And so similarly, as you look very deeply, you see all the thoughts that you had, which were your beliefs of what reality is, were just things you wanted to satisfy an individual self who was lacking. You know, it's very interesting to see someone who is knowledgeable, but it's not interesting to see someone who's not authentic. Authenticity means stop thinking who you are and be as you are. And so this is where breathing really helps, deep breathing actually. I have written about this, but vehicles is an understanding of your individuality, of its collective presence, where how it is perceiving itself is through a greater ability to move its individuality. So sometimes you see from your external reality you have no inspiration, but suddenly you sit down on that bench, let's say that day where everything's going wrong, and you just sit down and you close your eyes and you just for a second remember a time you were right, and you see you can add imagery of your ability to days where you're incapable also. And so to continue, you're there and simply in that depth of just internal observance, you find out that there is no reason to continue a process that doesn't work. And that process that doesn't work is this constant fluctuation of I'm an ideal who's trying to find happiness, but I can't because where the hell's the thinker? You know? So it's very important to see yourself clearly and in what clarity means to you at first, and how that sense of a conditioned imagery dissolves. When I say conditioned imagery, guys, by the way, this is what I mean by this is, for example, my conditioned imagery was that where I was born, the culture I was exposed to, and what information came my way. And I associated with that. Our conditioning is a mold. It's actually acknowledging the first vehicle you're in, the bodies of imagery that are defining you. And then also the second vehicle becomes a more focused, let's say, externalization where there's objectivity. You know, if you look at objectivity and you look at it deeply with a sense of, I don't want to say letting go, but just being your intuition, if I can say that. You know, it's an innate feeling. You would see that this objectivity would dissolve into abstract thought. So it's as if the curve of reality is our thought. So that curve we were just, this plane of existence was a part of, that point on the curve, which where we are now was a part of, we would see suddenly we're becoming aware the next point is like different states where the consciousness is different as well. It's as if the golden ratio's curves are being felt very clearly. And so it's very important to understand, because in this reality, this is how you, in a sense, move towards a greater understanding of transcendence. And what you do is let objectivity speak on its own without you interpreting it. And so it's that stillness and emptiness which is very profound in Buddhism. If you find that sense of serene, sincere, just awareness to all existence, with an emptiness in thinking that you're a thought or a thinker, you're just a being that is aware of the presence of thought as you're aware of your presence, immediately you have shifted the holographic projection you're posting on the actual thing. I mean, think about it. All those people who believe in a holographic universe, what is keeping the holographic universe there? So the holographic universe is that kid who just didn't want to, let's say, come on the road trip. That's a holographic reality. Someone who's not allowing himself to look, and so he's creating with a sense of knowing that he's not there. When we create with a sense of knowing that he's not there, that is actually an experience in your internal dimensions which you're bringing to externality bits. So that should be something where if you're in a deep, I don't want to say deep meditative state, but you're in your self-contemplative flow of your life's work, you then may work in such ways. But guys, it's all about being aware. You are the pilot of consciousness. You need to adjust and see where your thought is turbulence. You need to see, oh my God, for example, does the thought of my father bring turbulence in my mind? Immediately acknowledge it, confront it. You're here to create a great mind for yourself. No one emphasizes this, but a great mind. And a great mind doesn't mean looking good in front of the mirror, or being able to dance with your eyes closed. Looking good means that you are clear about your life, and your clarity is aligning all aspects of your being. This clarity is an existential awareness. It is you being aware that you are a being. And then a human who's partying on weekends. The best way I have found to look at the actuality. For example, when I say collective awareness, that's not an idea. If you're having images for that, that's wrong. It's an unspeakable internal experience which you, in a sense, find yourself within. Remember, mankind may be free from certain conditions of its externality, but as an individuated idea is never free. The human is the vehicle for the being aspect of you. And so you are the awareness to all that humanity is and can be. There are no wrong trajectories here. There's no wrong way up the mountain. You exist in this dimension, and it's as if regardless of who you think you are, how much trouble you think you're in, when you just stop your car for a second, on that road trip, you just stop your car. And you just be aware of where you are, look at your mirrors, look at them in front of you, and you suddenly see, oh my God, your front window is completely covered or messy and you couldn't see, for example. You suddenly see, oh my God, all these mosquitoes on my front window are all these thoughts of depression, stress, conspiracy, fatigue, annihilation, extinction. What are these ridiculous ideas? We have no experience of them. Why are we talking about extinction? We are a species who are not extinct yet. We must not think about extinction and be like, oh gosh, what are we going to do about extinction? Extinction is only valuable to be talked about if it needs to inspire certain aspects of society to get off their ass. However, these ideas are not things to play with. You should not go thinking too much about extinction, because the mind is powerful in the sense that it will allow you to create worlds of your own. And so if you're creating a world with guilt as your color, oh man, it's unnecessary. Because guys, the awareness of the vehicle means that you are at first being aware of this dimension of reality and the greater dimensions that this allows you to see, because you're moving from what is real. So what that means is these vehicles are at first vehicles, but then you associate with a greater collective knowing. What that means is that, think of it this way. A child, if a child was here, you as an adult are more aware than that child, but the being that is aware of your whole moment of existence, everything that is observing you talking to that child, for example, suddenly sees that father and son are all kept in conception. Do you know? It's as if Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are fun. Anyways, what I mean by that is that the observance, the greater observance of your eyes, it is a visionary thing. It is a perception thing. And at first, the vehicle is you recognizing what part of that perception you're consciously controlling. But you will see that the vehicles are not here to be associated as you. That means your awareness of the vehicle allows you to flow gently in this life. What that means is that you're not taking life seriously in the sense that you're existentially aware of it. So for example, you're suddenly more aware of your environment and the plants and the thing, everything. Just when you walk in the street, you're hearing different sounds. And when I say different sounds, it's not that you're hearing crazy sounds, it's that your ears suddenly are tuning in to the noise of that car's wheel, to the sound of that bird in the distance. It's as if your way of attention has become more able. It's as if attention has been allowed more of a running space because you're conscious of a vehicle, which is all the imagery in the moment. Consciousness is driven beyond form, and that is why it's all good, guys. Don't worry. It's all good internally. It's just externally, we're multidimensional beings present here, connecting many worlds, and we're here to give our inspiration. That's it. So what that means is you are the intermediary between a horizontal dimension of externality and a vertical dimension of internality, where from that internality you are the whole cosmos, which I will explain more intricately later on. And externally you are that guy who's about to buy coffee. You guys must see that when you find yourself uncomfortable with ideology or any communication, it is because your comfort has been based on a certain image, you know? It's as if you, like 10 years ago, you were a marathon runner and you haven't ran since, and you think you're still one. But you haven't ran. You know, you can be one. You have a great potential to be one, but you have not continued that action. So similarly, if we do not continue and practice our sense of awareness to our vehicles of thought, to our vehicles of what is this external vision, and do this all authentically, naturally, and sincerely as the moment of existence that we are, the moment of being we are, we see that we don't want money. We are multidimensional beings. Money is paper, and I could visualize that money immediately into let's say millions in my cellular planes. But why would I need it? The work here is greater because we're understanding ourselves to be more aware beings. It's regardless of how much we're cruel to one another, life is becoming more aware of itself. The human being, just like a flower, is growing, and you're going to suddenly see, in a while, we're going to be such a compassionate humanity. It'd be crazy. You'd suddenly see, like, the children of that bully, and the child of that bully, and the child of, that bully, and just, the children of that bully suddenly will no longer bully anyone. It's as if he's like, what the hell was my ancestry doing, bullying people? It's you will recognize this because you are being aware that there's no need to try to be an individual being who's trying to control your condition in a world that has a potential to make it look like heaven sometimes and make it look like hell. You want to move beyond the imagery that is giving self-talk in your head. Your mind should be silent. You should not have too many thoughts. And when I say too many thoughts, because the way you're aware of thought is abstract, so that is where you're giving a potential for confusion to spill out, because you create the confusion. And this is kind of like a sense of it's a relationship that dissolves. I personally have had on my subtler planes of awareness experiences where I've taken a geometric shape, a shape that just came to me through a dream, and that dream suddenly just gave me a great understanding of geometry, And so let's say in that dream, I suddenly recognize shapes are vehicles, but they're not vehicles for here. What that means is that triangle you've drawn on a piece of paper, suddenly, based on how you as a self-aware being can take that lesser dimension and give it infinite potential, gives you a potential to be a creator. So we see when man picks up a pen and he knows a lot of words, it's as if he's God. He can write anything, and everything will be written on the emptiness and the void of existence. But if he puts down the pen, he will suddenly see, oh my God, the truth is the void of the existence. And so we may question, who's the Heavenly Father who's writing, right? How are we manifest, and some aspects is as if some parts of that blank page in which this Heavenly Father was writing, this great or originator of being was writing, let's say, and some parts of it left it blank. And so we were following the intentions, and we're like, wait a minute, there's a gap here, Guys, it's like that moment where you look at mountains and you can visualize a straight line, but you see that when you visualize that straight line, all the gaps that are created based on the mountain not being. And so when you visualize those straight lines, if you learn to just naturally allow your subtler planes to be received by you, you don't need to physically do anything or even internally think about doing something. You just need to be aware of the receiver that you are as existence, and your greater dimensions very gently and very slowly, like streams coming together and moving into a greater river of direction, you will suddenly see, then you will begin cultivating a greater mind, because your mind is observing your mind constantly. The cause and effect of it is being observed. What can be aware of cause and effect? And the only thing that can be aware of cause and effect is something that's in an instant. It's as if it's that point where suddenly two lines were drawn, and there was, for example, there was a triangle made, an inverted triangle, and suddenly from that triangle, greater designs came in, greater geometry came in. I noticed that the minute I got rid of all the ridiculous ideology and imagery I was associating to geometry, I gave myself a chance to see authentically what it means for me. When I observed that, I noticed, wow, there is a gold mine of wisdom in just how man can utilize geometry in his abstraction with an understanding of sound. Because sound is not just creating words that are creating worlds. Sound is a design. It's an inspiration to create. It's as if it's man's. If we were gods, that would be our first creation. It's as if on that writer, it's his first creation was that first sentence he wrote. And he just stood back and was like, all right, I like this sentence, Remember, you are a self-aware being, and this self-awareness is your gift. Animals don't have it, you have it. You can be self-aware. Because this self-awareness is giving you a greater platform. It's as if from that neutrality you're walking, it's as if you have experienced a plane where there is complete negativity and then one complete positivity, because these are subjective things, and suddenly you have become the observance of both. Use the intelligence of silence when working with noise. Use the intelligence of noise when you're working with silence. Use the intelligence of stillness when you're working with movement. Use the intelligence of movement when you're working with stillness. Follow these, and the pilot of consciousness will begin being a very creative being, an advanced communicator, because his presence is being made luminous by his awareness of the many different lights that are within his eyes. You need poetry to allow your mind to expand into the unknown. Every step into the unknown is poetry. And so Rumi, a very wise poet from 800 years ago, has a quote where he says, "Be living poetry." And to be living poetry means that every moment of your being, you're stepping into the unknown, and so new experiences and new worlds are opening. You must not think multidimensionality and your awareness to dimensions is something that it's as if they are fixed. They are not fixed. They are dynamic states of awareness to self, and that is why those principles I mentioned earlier will guide you. It's a fantastic journey, but if you're not aware that it's a journey, if you're not aware that you are an explorer in this life, then it will not be meaningful to you, in the sense that you will not have a cup empty enough to maintain this elixir, in a sense. The elixir of life. So it's very, very important to see that regardless of any alchemy, you are a conscious being, and you are one in existing with all that exists. In other words, regardless of the image, if we just took existence as the commonality between all human beings, sincerely you will love existence. You will save your fellow man, because you as a being in this plane of dimension will suddenly recognize how much love you have for objects and everything. You don't realize how much love you have of it because you're touching it and you're thinking that it's affecting you. Do you know? There's a very, I believe it's a Vedic saying, Vedic seer saying, where they say to be in the world but not of it. So you are aware that you exist, but you're also aware of the temporal nature of this reality, in the sense that a view is only keeping the cycles spinning. And this view belongs to no man. It belongs to no image. But man has a great ability to jump into a pool of greater cosmic understanding. Because it's an experiential thing. When the concept of direct experience comes, that's not an idea. That's how you look back at everything you know and dissolve into what you can be. And what it is written for you. In Arabic, there's the word maktub, as in it is written. And so you see, it's not that there's a destiny that is not, no, it's just that as you as a being who's been working with a segmented sense of space and time, become aware of your memory, and you're constantly looking at your whole life through a very still, deep, and very gentle state of being, with very comfortable breathing perhaps recommended by the Dalai Lama. And so as you're there, the clarity of your stillness in this moving world will give you the knowing that eternity is never a one-dimensional thing. So if you think of eternity as something that has to have an idea to satisfy your lack of wanting to look at other dimensions, in the sense of seeing what your being is before being so convinced of its caged humanity, it's crucial to know your relationship with the form as formless, and to know your relationship in the formless as form. It's we have to be aware right now. It's a moment where I've said Mr. Within is a mirror of existence, but what I've implied there actually is that when everyone goes to find Mr. Within, everyone will give themselves the mirror they need. This mirror is not a physical mirror, it's an internal mirror. It's as if our internal, when I say internal, let's say it like this: your thoughts at first are things where you think you are originating. But as you become aware of it, you see that the observance of it can be beyond origination. So it's as if you just stop thinking as you see that the thoughts are still coming, you know? So it's man's flaw to try to linearize a non-linear sense of expression. And by doing so, he has limited the evolution of the human being in embedding in its technologies. So what that means is, it's as if when I looked at this plane of reality, the illusion was not what was here, but how the being approached itself as an idea that it could never be. Consciousness is able always. I hope that you recognize that regardless of what vehicle you become aware of or associate with, or in a sense find yourself in, your vehicle can be your awareness to a body, or it can be an awareness to everything that is just a relationship, a physical relationship in your experience. You will guide yourself, and that is the point. Throughout this whole process of finding Mr. Within, it is very crucial you recognize that you're here to guide yourself. And when I say guide yourself, is no, I'm not here. It's not like a drive-through. You ask and you get something. This is you increasing your existential responsibility as a human being. It's as if you're saying, okay, no, I don't have to just take care of my kids. I have to take care of my whole plane of existence. And how do I take care of it? By being my most natural self. By not tuning into something per se, but just, in a sense, allowing myself to observe the harmony that is found within the nature of all things. Your essence is never wrong. It cannot be. But your essence has an ability to create itself in many ways. And so a creator sometimes requires to be within the experience of its creation to slow its infinite realms down. So there's the reason when, for example, in Greek mythology, let's take that imagery. In Greek mythology, when man spoke against the gods, suddenly Zeus threw a lightning at that guy. He's like, hey, stop talking, buddy. You know, lightning. So the reason perhaps we could really intricately see this is that because that human being was being a creation that was moving, was fluctuating, was creating instability on a greater platform of collective being. as it was creating instability, it wasn't that it was doing something wrong. It's just that for that collective being that was being the experience of those individual beings, that collective being had to, in a sense, there was a sense of choice for it to choose to acknowledge and accept all your infinite realms of creation that this guy is doing, or to, in a sense, how would I say it? The fear is perhaps you need to throw lightning at someone because that man can rise to the height of God. Creation and creator can dissolve into each other's experiences, where creator at the same time with creation are in dynamics. Well, I would like to really actually explain this intricately, that if creator is cruel, it has chosen to make the whole world against the individual. But if the individual is the creator, then the whole world cannot be cruel. Because it's as if you are allowing yourself from what you know to create a world that you know. And it is not elusive, guys. These are on subtler planes. These are not things to communicate. These are not linear. These are non-linear senses of experiential knowing. Our communication is what is giving, is what is our exploration into the unknown aspects of man's multidimensionality. Now's the time. I only have one lifetime here. I'm pretty sure you guys have one lifetime too, you know? So right now, let's work here, and we should not evolve by each one of us trying to think that we have to be Martin Luther King because they told us about giving a speech was the only way to contribute, but for you to allow yourself as a moment of existence, a moment of being, to just be comfortable and to trust life. If you trust life, don't call it, let's say, God if you're uncomfortable, don't call it whatever, but just trust the life that is here and trust the life that you are in clarity and within self-awareness, and you will immediately move to profound levels of experiencing your beliefs. Your beliefs are all vehicles also. There's a reason you're holding on to it. It's like, oh my God, I like what this guy says. It's like I'm gonna get a new Porsche. I'm gonna get this new belief, you know. But you're not driving it because you're still a one-dimensional, let's say, experiencer in regards to suddenly jumping into a very multidimensional experiencer, you know. When I say one-dimensional, that is for the sake of this, for this context. In actuality, the human experience is very multidimensional without even jumping into its abstract realms. You will see, before you get a complete experience of your internal realms, it's as if you're moving to the edges of your external, so you're seeing magical things happen. When you move to the edges of your external reality, it's that moment where you are seeing there's no need to take a step forward because there is no step back. And you stop and you become that mystic who was the lover of the unknown, who was excited to know life in the most deepest way. And he then shared his own wisdom. Do you see this? He did not need to go study. It just he as a being observed humanity to such a degree that immediately it's as if nature spoke through. I find myself to be many things to many things, one thing to one thing, and nothing to nothing. And in conclusion, there is no conclusions that will satisfy an infinitely changing cycle. Walk with the knowing that all things are within you and you are within all things. Trust life. Because that is one simple free contribution that you can do as a human being. Just to trust your life. Just not to think everything is opposing you, but for one day wake up and be like, everything is with me. Because I am a being. I am a new moment in this vast cosmos. A moment of existence that is present beyond its limited apparatus. Stories will excite you to a point, then you will see the next act, the next excitement is action. So what that means is when change comes knocking on your door, when a vast cosmic change comes knocking on your door. You will at first hear it as ideas and be like, okay, those are nice ideas. Then you would suddenly see that the next knock is not a knock, it's a complete silence, as if you did not acknowledge the thing, so it's gone. And then that silence is the greatest knock that that cosmic awareness is doing to you. The fact that it can go away. The fact that I can stop speaking to speak again. Remember yourself, and your reality is never limited. For when you see that you're not the clouds, the whole sky belongs to you. Much blessings and namaste.